Millionaire discovers an incredible truth as a homeless woman touchingly inspires his 8-year-old. Jake Thompson glanced at his reflection in the polished glass of his penthouse window, the vibrant cityscape of San Francisco twinkling in the background. A tech millionaire at 45, he had everything most dreamed of: wealth, success, an empire built from scratch. Yet, in the quiet echo of his luxurious surroundings, he felt an unbearable emptiness clawing at him. The truth gnawed beneath his corporate arrogance, a painful reminder that his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, had started to drift away, entangled in a life he had created but was slowly destroying. Corporate boardrooms had taken precedence over bedtime stories, and financial reports overshadowed laughter. He had been warned, but now he was drowning. When the charity initiative popped up on his schedule, he grumbled at the thought of dragging Lily along. Yet the responsibility pressed on him. Buried beneath the weight of his corporate obligations was a flicker of duty to show her that success could be paired with compassion. A ghost of reluctance brushed against his chest as they entered the local homeless shelter, the cacophony of marginalized voices reverberating painfully in his affluent mind. The contrast hit him like a cold slap. He glanced over at Lily, her small hand clutching his as she took in a world beyond her understanding. They walked through the facility, past faces worn down by life, and somewhere amid the despair sat a woman whose eyes sparkled with warmth. Mary was her name. Her presence exuded a peculiar strength, her stories of love and resilience wrapped around Lily like a comforting blanket. Jake felt an alien sense of discomfort cocoon him as he watched his daughter lean in closer to Mary, her laughter filling the chilly air while he remained an outsider. They'd returned home hours later, but Lily's spirit danced, unfazed by the world that seemed to swallow him whole. Weeks passed, and every day, Lily begged to visit Mary. Jake, once dismissive of the prospect, felt the begrudging confines of his heart expand. With each visit, he witnessed Lily blossom, her innocence overshadowed by compassion. But doubt dripped in like poison. Could a homeless woman's stories reshape his daughter's life? Upon his return to the office, conversations buzzed about a pivotal merger that would lock him back in the rat race. Nausea welled up within him. Could he continue amidst this narrative? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jake felt the suffocating pressure as he questioned the worth of his daily grind. The endless deadlines suddenly seemed trivial next to what Lily shared about Mary's resilience. Her desire to help those in need revealed a light in her that he had overlooked. But seeing that light also ignited a storm within him. Memories of his own upbringing, humbling lessons buried beneath stacks of technology bills and profit margins. A breathtaking revelation rattled him when he uncovered the surprising threads linking Mary to his family's hidden philanthropic legacy, tales of generosity long forgotten. Standing at the intersection of ambition and intention, Jake felt every breath become a labor, the weight of what he should do pressing heavily on his chest. Just as he began envisioning a redefined path through the fog of his success, an insurmountable corporate deal loomed ahead, requiring an unforgiving choice. Would he clutch tightly to his wealth, or would he dare to reconsider the cost of true success? Each beat of his heart echoed the urgency dancing in his mind, leaving him on edge, caught between his daughter's radiant dreams and the financial empire that could shatter their newfound connection. Tension crackled in the air, tightening as he stood paralyzed, unaware of which way he would ultimately fall. Jake stood in his office, the once familiar space now feeling foreign and constricting. Harsh fluorescent lights flickered overhead, their brightness underscoring the weight that pressed on him. He looked down at the sprawling merger documents sprawled across his desk, numbers and graphs blending together in a haze. Each figure seemed to mock him, a constant reminder of the path he had forged, yet now appeared so misguided. His phone buzzed with notifications, reminders about board meetings and conference calls, but the urgency of the tech world felt distant, overshadowed by the world Lily had been introduced to. The image of Mary, her soulful eyes and the courage in her voice, settled in his mind, refusing to fade. She had shared her life's upheavals with such honesty that it resonated deeply. It awakened long-silenced feelings he had buried for years beneath ambitions and accolades. Jake. His assistant's voice pierced through his thoughts, pulling him sharply back into reality. She leaned in the doorway, concern etched across her face. The board is wondering why you haven't weighed in on the merger strategy for next week. They're expecting what? He interrupted, the boiling frustration in his voice surprising even himself. He felt a swirling anger at the corporate machine that demanded his loyalty, while his heart drifted towards a new truth. Just that they need your input, she stammered, retreating slightly at his intensity. The veneer of professionalism was cracking, and Jake knew he had to recalibrate. He took a deep breath, letting the tension permeate his senses. Could he truly align himself with that corporate path, handcuffed to decisions that felt hollow? Each time he considered it, he envisioned Lily's face lighting up when sharing stories with Mary. She had found a connection that was good and pure, a cherished bond radiating warmth and hope rather than profit margins and spreadsheets. That a revelation struck him. This wasn't merely about a choice between wealth and morality. It was about legacy. What kind of father did he want to be? Memories rushed to the forefront. His father, who had chosen to prioritize family commitments over climbing the corporate ladder, had etched a deep-rooted respect in Jake's heart for those values. But somehow, he had strayed far from that path. Fueled by conflicting emotions, he shut his laptop and stood up, a decision forming in the chaos. The impending merger threatened to swallow his soul, risking the fragile threads of connection he was desperately trying to weave with Lily. Perhaps, he thought, it was time for a radical rethinking, not just in professional terms, but within the very fabric of who he wanted to be as a man and a father. Jake stepped out of his office, his mind racing through scenarios. Could he postpone the merger? He would have to confront the board, express uncertainty where there should be confidence, and dismantle the image he had meticulously built. Fear clawed at his gut, yet deep down, uneasiness gave way to an exhilarating sense of liberation that he climbed into his car, hands gripping the wheel tightly as he navigated downtown. Each intersection symbolized a crossroads, choices looming ahead that would redefine his life. He envisioned walking back into the shelter, embracing the discomfort that had once repelled him, seeing not just Mary, but all those whose stories could inspire future generations. Just then, a notification popped up on his phone. News about the merger was trending, highlighted in angry headlines. The pressure was escalating, angry voices already rising around him. Suddenly, the gravity of his impending choices bore down heavily. The time had come to face the company he had built as well as the man he was becoming. Would he have the courage to step away from the very empire he had worked to establish? The tremor of uncertainty coursed through him as he realized this decision could not wait. The moment of truth arrived much sooner than he anticipated. Jake switched off his phone, sliding it into his pocket as he parked outside the shelter. The familiar building loomed before him, a stark contrast to the glitzy high-rises he navigated daily. This space buzzed with life, a collective humanity he had long overlooked while chasing success. As he stepped out of his car, the cool breeze brushed against his skin, invigorating yet daunting that he hesitated at the entrance, recalling how he had once viewed this place as merely a statistic on a balance sheet, an obligation swallowed by the demands of his corporate world. Now, it pulsated with untold stories, a resonance he could no longer ignore. His pulse quickened, fueled by both fear and anticipation. Inside, he was met with an array of faces eager to connect, laughter intertwining with heartfelt conversations. It was a different kind of warmth than the cold, transactional exchanges of boardrooms. Jake spotted Mary right away, her laughter piercing through the din. She was working with a small group of children, their joy infectious as they crafted stories and created colorful drawings. Lily was there too, her face brightened with excitement and admiration as she listened closely to Mary. The sight made Jake's heart swell. This was the happiness he had desperately sought, but had failed to recognize amid corporate strategies and profit margins. He approached tentatively, feeling the pressure of the choices that awaited him like a tidal wave threatening to crash. "Dad!" Lily exclaimed, running towards him. She embraced him, her arms wrapping around his waist in a way that made the weight of his decisions feel lighter. "Hey, sweetie," he murmured, crouching to her eye level. "What are you doing here?" "Mary is helping me write a story," Lily replied, her eyes sparkling. "It's about a superhero who helps people. You should hear it." A grin broke across Jake's face, but it quickly faltered as he turned his gaze to Mary. She glanced at him, her expression open and welcoming, yet there lay an undeniable acknowledgement that they both understood what was at stake. "Do you want to join us?" she asked, her voice steady but compassionate. For a moment, he felt his resistance wavering. The idea of sharing a space with those who encountered life as struggles head-on sent shivers of excitement and vulnerability through him. But then the weight of his corporate commitments bore down, whispering warnings of insecurity, the merger, the expectations. "Maybe I could help with the story too," he replied awkwardly, choosing this fragile connection over the firm grasp of his past life. Mary smiled warmly. "Every story matters, no matter how small. Just dive in." Jake observed the interactions, the raw honesty of emotions flowing freely, the way people used their words to weave their realities. It illuminated aspects of himself he had long buried: his aspirations, his desire to contribute, the remnants of a warmth that existed long before the corporate machine tightened its grip on his identity. As he stepped into the circle of children and shared ideas, he felt a transformation within. This was not merely volunteering. It was rediscovery, a reunion with parts of himself that had been suppressed by ambition. But another realization pierced through. Every moment spent here was pulling him further away from his role at the company, from the merger that seemed more like a cage than an opportunity. After a while, Mary observed his moment of reflection. "Jake, what are you thinking?" she asked gently. He hesitated, weighing his words carefully. "I feel like I have to make a choice, Mary. It's a big one, and I'm not sure what to do." A somber yet understanding look appeared on her face. "Those kinds of choices? They often reveal who we truly are." His breath caught at the truth of her words, almost as if a mirror had been held to his soul. The deadline was looming, the board demanding clarity, confidence. But clarity was fleeting. What lay before him was a crossroads, not solely steeped in professional commitments, but laced with personal identity and familial legacy. Before he realized it, the words escaped him, tumbling into the air like a stone cast upon still water. "I think I may have to walk away." Silence enveloped the children around them. Jake felt the gravity of his disclosure like a dual-edged sword, liberating, yet brimming with uncertainty. Mary's gaze was steady, encouraging, and in it, he gleaned something he hadn't fully embraced before: the courage to forge ahead, regardless of the past or future consequences. But what would happen next? The answer hung in the air, tantalizingly out of reach. Would he have the strength to confront the board, to dismantle the life he had built in pursuit of something deeper? As the weight of his words settled, a new urgency coursed through him. The moment was ripe with potential, but would he seize it before it vanished? With a mixture of fear and growing determination, Jake stood braced for the journey ahead, unaware that the true challenge had only just begun. Jake felt a tingling sense of rebellion coursing through him, but the realization that he was still tethered to his corporate identity loomed larger. He scanned the faces of the children around him, innocent and full of potential, and began to recognize the polarized worlds he inhabited, one bound by profit and faceless ambition, the other rooted in empathy and connection. To engage fully with this new reality, he first had to confront the chaos, resolve. The inkling of a plan began to form within him, a voice that didn't just echo fear, but whispered courage. As he walked home that evening, an unexpected sense of empowerment surged through him. The path ahead blurred, but anticipatory energy filled the spaces once laden with dread. He knew he would confront the board soon. There would be no turning back, but first, he had to immerse himself in this new reality, to reconnect, to understand what truly driving him forward. He took a deep breath and embraced the turbulence within, knowing the moment of truth was fast approaching. What he didn't know was how deeply those final choices would challenge every fiber of his professional being. And as he stepped back into the familiar chaos of the corporate world, he couldn't shake the whisper of anticipation asking, What was truly at stake? Would he choose to redefine success or simply replicate the old narrative? The answer was just beyond his reach, tantalizingly close yet shrouded in uncertainty. The next morning, Jake awoke with a jolt. The sun slicing through the curtains felt like a spotlight shining down on him, illuminating the shadows he'd tried to ignore. He rolled out of bed with a sense of urgency clawing at his insides. Today was different. Today marked the beginning of an unfamiliar journey. The thought of facing the board loomed over him like a thundercloud, and the mere idea of potential confrontation knotted his stomach. He glanced at Lily, who was still deep in sleep, her face serene and beautiful. It was a reminder of everything he had to gain and everything he risked losing. He made a silent vow then, to find a way to balance the duties of a father and the precariousness of his professional life. He needed to be the father Lily deserved, a figure of substance rather than just a title. After a quick breakfast, Jake prepared himself mentally for the day ahead. His suit felt heavier than usual, as if the fabric might suffocate the burgeoning individual he was attempting to unearth. Each button he fastened was a tether back to the corporate identity he was struggling to shed. The weight of indecision pressed down. Did he want to continue feeding a machine that drained his spirit? As he navigated the familiar streets toward the office, images flitted through his mind, the faces of his colleagues, the sterile boardroom, and the inevitable discussions steeped in profit margins. Would they even understand the turmoil that had taken root within him? He was not the untouchable titan they believed him to be. He was a man wrestling against his own expectations. When he entered the building, the air felt charged, electric with the usual buzz. Phones ringing, keyboards clicking, voices rising and falling in measured cadence. But today, it all felt muted, as if he were observing from behind glass. He walked to his office, mind racing, rehearsing what he might say to the board. Yet, an unsettling thought nagged at the back of his mind. What if no one cared? What if they dismissed his changes and left him feeling even more isolated? He took a deep breath and shook off the thoughts. He needed a plan. Instead of jumping straight into the board meeting, Jake decided to carve out time to sit with Mary first. Their conversations had anchored him in the swirling chaos. Perhaps she could help him formulate a strategy. He needed an ally. Later that morning, he found her in the quiet corner of the coffee shop. Her laughter mingled with the sound of clinking cups, creating an oasis amidst his impending storm. "Glad to see you," Mary said, a genuine smile lighting her face. "Thanks for meeting me," Jake replied. "I'm standing at the edge, and everything feels so overwhelming." She studied him, her gaze piercing through his calm facade. "Take a moment, Jake. What's the worst that can happen?" He considered her question. "I could lose my position, my security. I could alienate myself from my colleagues. Or you could inspire them. Is your integrity worth sacrificing for the sake of your corporate persona?" Her words ignited a flicker of defiance within him. Imagine what could happen if you tapped into your true self. People are always more inspired by authenticity than a polished facade. She encouraged, as he sipped his coffee. He felt a shift. He wasn't just navigating threats of the corporate world. He was also invoking the potential for change, for genuine connection. Perhaps there was a way to intertwine his newfound insights into his workspaces and approach where numbers met heart. After their talk, he felt bolstered, ready to face the board. He returned to his office, the weight of uncertainty both draining and exhilarating. The hourglass was already slipping, and he couldn't allow time to erode his courage. Suddenly, the thought struck him: what if this meeting was less about presenting numbers and more about sharing a vision? He could articulate a framework that integrated empathy into corporate values. The more he mulled over the idea, the more it felt like a lifeline rather than a risk. As the clock ticked closer to the meeting, Jake stood on the precipice of a bold decision. The door to the boardroom swung open, revealing his path ahead. Would he redefine success for himself and those around him? He felt the tension coiling tighter, a mix of fear and determination twirling within. The moment was here. All he needed to do was step forward into the unknown. But as he prepared to speak, Jake's heart thudded with the realization of just how uncertain his next words might be. Could he truly dismantle the very structure he'd spent years climbing? Would they listen? The next few minutes could change everything. He stepped into the glare of the boardroom, a cacophony of fear and hope flooding his senses. It was time to confront not just the board, but also the truth he had always avoided. And as the familiar faces turned to him, a single thought reverberated in his mind. Would he reclaim his own narrative or remain a prisoner of expectations? Jake stepped into the boardroom, the weight of unspoken words pressing against his chest. A row of expectant faces awaited him, eyes sharp, expressions a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. He cleared his throat, the clear sound overwhelming the silence, and felt the moment stretch infinitely before him. "Thank you for gathering today," he began, the formality of his voice in stark contrast to the chaos swirling in his mind. He searched for the right words, grasping for that budding vision he and Mary had discussed. They weren't just numbers on a page. They were people, ideas, motivations. "Today, I want to talk about something that could redefine what success means for us." The slight tremor in his voice gave way to a steadiness he hadn't anticipated. He dug deeper, determined to find the truth he believed lay hidden within the organization he had served for so long. Success isn't just about profits or market shares. It's about the human connections we foster within these walls. He noted the raised brows and skeptical glances, but he pressed on. "I believe we can create a work environment rooted in empathy, where each employee feels valued beyond their productivity metrics." With every word, he recalled the warmth of Lily's laughter and the strength in Mary's eyes. These were not just abstract ideas. They were the very fibers of the life he longed to shape, both at work and at home. Imagine this: a program that nurtures not only our bottom line but also supports our employees' well-being, allowing them to bring their entire selves to work. That's real engagement. It may seem like a risk now, but it's also an investment in something far greater than our quarterly results. The room held its breath. The usual buzz had been replaced by an electric tension. He wasn't merely presenting a business strategy. He was inviting them to redefine their core principles alongside him. Questions flickered across the faces before him, a mix of intrigue and doubt. But as he continued, a profound realization washed over him. These were the same questions he had wrestled with, and he knew they were necessary in building the foundation for change. He had to confront their resistance. "Some of you may be afraid that this approach could hinder our growth," he said, leaning in. "What if we discovered that valuing our employees ignites creativity, increases loyalty, and ultimately boosts our profits? The best ideas come when people feel secure enough to share them." A sudden memory surfaced just last week. He had overheard a conversation between two junior team members, with one expressing a brilliant idea that had died in the shadow of fear. He was reminded that potential was often stifled under the weight of traditional expectations. As he laid out his proposals, his passion fueled every syllable. He spoke of mentorship programs, a more flexible work-life balance, and initiatives that champion diversity. With each suggestion, the initial skepticism among the board members began to soften, replaced by contemplative nods and a flicker of hope. Suddenly, he caught sight of Roger, the finance director, his face a mosaic of contemplation and concern, and it struck him. This wasn't just about winning them over. It was a genuine dialogue about a shared future. What we can build together is not just about our financial statements. It's about creating a culture that resonates with authenticity, he concluded, heart racing as he scanned the room. "But I can't do this alone, and I need your commitment to embark on this journey." A heavy silence followed, a pregnant pause filled with the weight of new possibilities. Jake held his breath, waiting for their reactions, and just as Roger poised to speak, a sudden commotion from outside the door drew everyone's attention. The momentary distraction symbolized the unpredictable world they lived in, chaotic, yet filled with potential. "Can I take a moment?" A voice called from the hallway. It was loud and clear, cutting through the tension. Jake swiveled, curiosity piqued. Who could interrupt such an important meeting? He felt a strange synchronicity. Change often emerged from the least expected moments. As he turned back, an unsettling thought passed through his mind. What if this unexpected interruption would embody the very transformation he was advocating, bringing humanity into a structured world? The door swung open wider, and a figure stepped in, ready to bridge his personal and professional revelations in a way he could never have anticipated. What could they possibly say that might change everything? Jake's heart raced as he braced himself for whatever was about to unfold. Jake's mind whirled as the unanticipated figure stepped into the boardroom, a wiry woman with wild, untamed hair, and a determined fire in her eyes. She appeared at the threshold of chaos and calm, bearing the weight of a world Jake had rarely considered. His focus shifted from the boardroom stalwarts, those who scrutinized the bottom line, to this unexpected player who spoke in unfiltered truth. "Excuse me," she said, meeting the board's curious gazes with an unyielding gaze of her own. "I'm here to share something critical. This will only take a moment." Jake was caught off guard, but a sense of urgency sparked within him. The abrupt intrusion felt like an invocation, a messy reminder of the humanity often drowned out by the hum of corporate machinery. He exchanged glances with Roger, who seemed bewildered, yet something in Jake recognized the potential within this disruption. "Life has a funny way of teaching us what we really need," the woman continued, holding the floor with an authenticity that silenced the room. "My name is Grace. I've seen how businesses thrive when their leaders genuinely connect with their people. It's not always about the spreadsheets." Each word resonated with the very essence of Jake's presentation. He sensed an invisible thread weaving between their ideas, a common narrative waiting to be brought to life. Grace continued, "I visited a community center this week where children told me their dreams, and it shattered my heart. They are not asking for toys or even meals. They want someone to believe in them." Her voice wavered slightly, revealing the depth of her concern. "The best ideas often come from the smallest voices, those you might overlook. You have power here, don't waste it on mere transactions." Jake felt the realization solidifying in his chest. This woman, standing barefoot in tattered clothing, was exemplifying the value of human connections he so desperately wanted to instill in his workplace culture. The board members murmured among themselves, their skepticism visibly eroding. Roger, leaning forward, seemed interested rather than irritated now. Perhaps they were all discovering that the source of their apprehension lay within their personal approach. For Jake, a spark of clarity ignited. He had never defined leadership through vulnerability before. Could it truly serve as the bedrock for the changes he sought? He found himself yearning to articulate this profound connection, but his fear of stepping too far into vulnerability gnawed at him. "Thank you, Grace," Jake said, finding his voice nonetheless shaky yet hopeful. "What you've shared is invaluable. We do need more than just policies. We need heart. We just need to acknowledge the human element driving those numbers." There was a hum of conversation rippling through the boardroom, the tension ebbing away. Ideas began swirling around, transforming initial resistance into flowing discourse. Jake seized the moment, propelled by a newfound confidence. "Let us not just discuss how we can improve the bottom line. Let us figure out how we can cultivate potential together." As the conversation picked up momentum, his thoughts darted to Lily. He pictured her joy when he brought these philosophies home, how she could play a part in amplifying these values. Roger interjected, "Do you think that this can work?" There was a challenge in his tone, a dare to commit to the bold new path Jake had articulated. "Yes," Jake replied, steeling himself against his doubt. "I believe it can. We owe it to ourselves." The time had come to direct their focus outward, to cultivate compassion as well as creativity. Jake felt the weight of the meeting transform. It was no longer just about acceptance but active engagement, a shared vision forged from disparate experiences. As discussions continued, a certainty began to root itself in Jake's mind. He had crossed a threshold. This meeting was not just a stake in the ground for professional development. It was a leap into emotional bravery. Suddenly, Grace stepped forward, her presence a catalyst. "Remember, change happens when you dare to disrupt comfort. I challenge you to take that leap." The challenge reverberated within him, igniting a latent fire. What facets of himself had he yet to explore? What boundaries had he erected out of fear? As the dialogue flourished, Jake caught a glimpse of his own reflection in one of the glass panels. He felt a shifting cadence within, a craving to dismantle the barriers he had unconsciously built around his own heart, both in the office and in life. The next step loomed large in his mind. Could he truly embrace the discomfort required to forge deeper connections? Would he be willing to face his moments of hesitation and vulnerability, to lead not just with strategy, but with empathy? The thought hung heavy in the air. He recognized now that each choice he made had the power to redefine not just his professional path, but his connection to those he loved and those he drove to succeed. "Let us begin," Jake said finally, face resolute, ready to reconcile his evolving identity as a leader with the heart of a human being. As the room buzzed with renewed energy, questions sprang up. Could this authentically human approach translate into meaningful change? What would be the next challenge in this journey toward transformation? Little did Jake know, the coming days would unravel hurdles that tested his resolve in unforeseen ways. What awaited him was a journey steeped in growth, where each challenge would demand clarity, decisiveness, and perhaps most importantly, courage. Jake sat at his desk long after the meeting had concluded, the rhythmic click of keyboards filling the silence that had settled in the office. The energy from the boardroom still coursed through him, kindling a fire that fueled his thoughts. Just 2 hours prior, he had been caught up in a whirlwind of conventional metrics and profit margins. Now he was grappling with the profound shift in his worldview initiated by Grace's stark honesty. The digital clock on his desk ticked steadily on, but time felt looking out at the distant city lights twinkling like stars. A sense of yearning enveloped him, not for material wealth, but for deeper connections that coursed through life. "Let us do this," Jake whispered to the night air, determination rising. But as he resolved to embrace this new journey, little did he know that the very first step he would take would lead to an unexpected confrontation, one that would force him to reevaluate the essence of his business and the intricacies of his heart. What awaited him could either elevate this new understanding or threaten to shatter it altogether. The morning sun broke through Jake's window, a golden ray spilling onto his worn desk. It signaled the start of a day that felt crucial. He lingered for a moment, allowing the warmth to wash over him. How peculiar, he thought. A tender moment could prompt the kind of introspection that spreadsheets never could. He needed to make this day count. Over coffee, he proposed the idea to Lily. "What if we talk about what it means to help people?" he asked, watching her animated face responding to the news of an anticipated dinner discussion. "You know how you help your friends when they're feeling down?" Her eyes sparkled, and the corners of her mouth turned upwards, delighted at his invitation to share. "Yeah, like when Mia fell and I helped her up," she chimed, enthusiasm brimming in her voice. "And what did you think when that happened?" He nudged gently, eager to unpack her thought process. "I just wanted her to feel better." "It's nice when someone makes you smile," she shrugged, as if the answer were the most natural instinct. In that moment, a glimmer of renewed hope ignited within Jake. He was parsing through the layers of adult complexity surrounding business leadership, while she distilled it down to the essence of human connection and kindness. This revelation glided through his mind like a fresh breeze. "Exactly. Do you think that feeling has a place at work?" "Of course. Right?" she answered earnestly, tilting her head and placing her small hands on the table as if the ground beneath her were shifting. "You should help people feel good at your job too." "Daddy, would you want people to go home sad?" Stunned by her insight, he blinked. The answer was becoming clear. He had been so far removed from the emotional element of his work. He had been navigating through numbers as if they were concrete walls, and missing the profound truths that were anchored within every interaction. "I wouldn't want that at all, Lily." A resolute pulse of determination unfurled inside him, a drive to be more present, to look beyond productivity metrics and tightly wrapped success formulas. With a sense of urgency, he got ready for work, intent on executing a radical change in his approach. The office environment needed a shakeup, something to awaken the dormant feelings in himself and others. But how? He needed to embrace vulnerability not just personally, but also professionally. What could this look like in corporate culture? As Jake strode into his office, a familiar sense of trepidation resurfaced. Instead of settling back into his usual routine of meetings and presentations, he summoned his energy to initiate an open forum with his team. He could hear the discussions hum around him, feel the weight of their expectations, but his mind was racing with determination. "Hey everyone," he began, fighting against the echo of doubt that lingered in his throat. "Can we talk about how we feel at work?" A few raised eyebrows met him, skepticism brewing in the air. Despite the hesitation, he pressed on. "I want to understand how we can support each other better. Work isn't merely about results. It's about the people who contribute to those results." Instead of a seamless jump into dialogue, he was met with silence, colleagues exchanging cautious glances. This was uncharted territory. As the quiet stretched, He sensed the instinct within him to retreat, yet he stayed firm, resolute. Let us share thoughts even if they feel vulnerable. The admission fizzled out, and he saw the surprise in their eyes. This was the first step to draining the layers of professionalism trap that had stifled genuine emotion. Unexpectedly, the silence cracked open, and one colleague, a man he had assumed was utterly indifferent, spoke up. "I've felt overwhelmed lately. Sometimes I don't think my work is valued." The words hung in the air, emotional truths unraveling. Jake's pulse quickened. The ripples of vulnerability were starting to resonate. They could transform their environment and redefine success beyond profits. As the discussion burgeoned, an invigorating feeling enveloped the room. People were sharing their thoughts, their challenges, opening up for the first time like blooming flowers revealing vibrant petals. Little did they know they were weaving a new fabric for connection, both personally and collectively. With each revelation, Jake started to realize, by leaning into this discomfort within their dialogue, he was delving deeper into his own transformation. But as the conversation deepened, he recognized an itch of anxiety resurfacing, a flicker of fear that these raw admissions might expose facets of himself he was still battling to understand. What had he unleashed? As they wrapped up, Jake could see the tentative moves towards healing and practicality. Yet, amidst this positive exchange, he felt a question lurking in the shadows of his mind. What if this openness led to conflicts he wasn't prepared for? What if candor bred chaos? The uncharted terrain ahead felt daunting. He left the meeting, heart racing, not only exhilarated by the breakthroughs, but also burdened with anticipation of the confrontations that would inevitably arise. As he journeyed back to his desk, a chill crept down his spine. By confronting the emotional layer, he had indeed set forth on a path of reckoning, one that would soon lead him to face internal crises he had long quelled, revealing truths he might not be ready to confront. But the atmosphere together hinted at a larger conflict brewing just beyond his reach. The nexus of personal growth and professional development was at hand. Would his newfound insights truly bridge the gap, or were they about to cast him into a tumult? Not long after he sat down, a knock resonated at his office door. "Jake, we need to talk." His manager's voice was resolute, an arrival marking the beginning of an unexpected confrontation. What lay behind that door could unravel everything. Jake took a deep breath, steadying his heartbeat as he prepared for the conversation ahead. His office door hovered between him and the unknown, a threshold laden with tension. He had opened Pandora's box by daring to reshape the corporate culture, and now he had to face the potential fallout. As his manager entered, a sweep of professionalism marked the air, immediately contextualizing the meeting in the cold grips of corporate hierarchy. But Jake felt different. He was ready to assert his newfound perspective and defend his vision. "Thank you for coming," he started, his voice steady yet inviting. "I appreciate the chance to discuss some recent changes I've initiated within the team." His manager's brow furrowed slightly. "We need to address these changes, Jake. The board isn't pleased with the shift you're making towards emotional engagement and open discussions. They believe it's potentially disruptive to our metrics." With every word, Jake felt the walls of expectation loom higher. But instead of retreating, he squared his shoulders. "Metrics are important, yes. But we cannot ignore the human element that drives those metrics. You want productivity? You want innovation? It's rooted in how we treat our people," he countered, emboldened by the feedback from his team. His manager regarded him with a mix of concern and curiosity. "And if the board decides to retract support for your initiatives? What then?" For a brief moment, uncertainty pricked at Jake's composure. His mind drifted to Lily's innocent gaze and the joy that Mary's stories had installed within her. It would be a setback, but the vision I'm pursuing isn't merely about approval. It's about purpose, he asserted, feeling the weight shift into a resolve he hadn't known he possessed until recently. "So you're willing to gamble your position, your security?" His manager leaned in, sensing the fervor in Jake's tone. "You risk everything you've built." Jake nodded, every word he spoke crystallizing his internal transformation. "I've built a facade, one that separates me from true success that involves integrity and compassion. If I can't navigate my career rooted in those values, then I have already lost." Understanding people's narratives makes us stronger, not weaker. Silence settled in the air, the kind that speaks volumes. Jake could see his manager weighing the implications of his words. "You've changed," came the acknowledgement, both as a statement and a question. Profoundly, Jake replied, an undercurrent of pride threading through his admission. "And I'm unwilling to return to a life that prioritizes profits over people. I want to lift those around me, foster a culture where everyone shares their voice and feels valued." "So what are you proposing?" his manager asked, intrigued by this unexpected shift. "Incorporate empathy into our core strategies. Offer mentoring programs. Hold workshops focusing on emotional intelligence and resilience. Show our employees that they matter, that their contributions go beyond mere statistics." A tense pause ensued as his manager appeared to contemplate the merits and risks entwined in Jake's ideas. "The board may see this as an uncharted territory. Jake," he finally spoke. "A potential backlash is inevitable. Then let us prepare for it," Jake urged fervently. "True leadership is about having the courage to steer during turbulent waters. I know the risks, but I'm committed to taking them." Finally, his manager leaned back, a glimmer of respect suffusing his features. "If you believe you can pull this off, I'll support you. If the board gets behind this, it could change everything, not just for you, but for everyone here." Jake felt a rush of exhilaration. This was more than validation for his beliefs. This acknowledgement signaled a new trajectory for his career and perhaps for his life. He had stood on a precipice, and now he was preparing to leap forward. "You won't regret this," he affirmed, his voice clear. As their meeting concluded, Jake emerged not just unscathed but fortified. The world outside felt illuminated, as if he were finally emerging from a fog. Each step back to his office brimmed with promise. He envisioned a workplace where warmth, respect, and productivity danced together, an inclusive realm, a legacy for Lily's generation. Days turned into weeks, and they set the wheel in motion, adjusting corporate strategies to adapt to this emergent culture. Jake led open forums where employees shared ideas and expressed concerns. The team flourished, and engagement soared alongside renewed passion for their work. On a sunny afternoon, bright laughter echoed through the office corridors as people mingled during spontaneous coffee breaks. A feeling of community enveloped the workplace. Jake paused, absorbing the transformation. His sense of purpose crystallized. He had built much more than a successful tech company. He was nurturing an environment that radiated connection, an environment that would enable each person to flourish. Later that evening, he returned home to find Lily sprawled out on the floor with her art supplies. She glanced up, her face a canvas of excitement. "Dad, can I read you my new story?" "Absolutely, sweetie," Jake replied, settling in beside her. As she read, he felt an undeniable pride swell within him. His daughter was writing about characters who helped others, who bridged divides. They were ideals he now embodied. "I love it," he exclaimed when she finished, pulling her into an embrace that carried every ounce of his conviction. "You're inspiring, kiddo." In that moment, Jake realized he had not only taken a stand for his professional ideals, he had also reclaimed his role as an engaged and present father. No longer divided, he had fused the parts of his life once seen as incongruous into a cohesive whole. He understood now success was not just captured in quarterly returns, but in the richness of connection, the courage to stand for kindness. He was now a professional equipped to lead with purpose and a father committed to fostering understanding and benevolence. Jake had indeed conquered the moment, emerging transformed and emboldened, eager to continually push boundaries not just for himself, but for those around him. In this new narrative, he didn't merely succeed, he thrived. And as the world beckoned him with uncertainty, he stepped forward, not with trepidation, but with unwavering confidence, a true embodiment of the change he wished to see. Now, to you, the reader, who stands at your own crossroads, don't wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this amazing transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to take action now and support this journey of personal overcoming.